Okay. Hello, students. I'm hoping this is recording. It looks like it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through step by step what I want you to do for the midterm, which is what we've done before, which is the rhetorical analysis. So if you've seen my screencast that's titled Rhetorical Analysis Demonstration, you're going to know most of what I'm going to show you here. This is just going to mostly be review. What I'm going to add to it is that Toolman analysis that we've just learned, and that will pertain to how we take apart the logos, how we analyze the logos. So I'm going to start with this article right here because it's topical. QAnon's all over the place, and the Guardian has this. This is one of the most important papers in the UK. I like reading the Guardian on occasion, and they really do a long takedown. So see, I can scroll down, and they really do QAnon and why it's nuts and untruthful, and they really go into detail about it. So I figure they make a lot of claims for me to work with. Really, that's the main reason I'm looking at it. Otherwise, I would prefer not to ever look at conspiracy theories because they're nuts. But this will be useful to us. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to my notes because remember from my last screencast, I said you really have to do the note-taking part if you're going to write a college-level analysis. So let's just say we'll give it a simple title just for my own sake. Rhetorical analysis of Q Anon article in Guardian. Okay. Sorry if you heard the clacking. That's my gigantic poodle. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at what the big claim that the writer's making. We call that the rhetorical analysis claim. Remember I told you that's like your high school teachers might have talked about the thesis statement. We talk about the rhetorical analysis claim. So let's see what the big claim of this article is. It'll be toward the beginning. So the title here is QAnon Explain the Anti-Semitic Conspiracy Theory Gaining Traction Around the World. Okay. So let's look at the beginning and see if there's if we can probably make out the rhetorical analysis claim in the first few paragraphs because it's usually how it goes. Okay. To Donald Trump, it's people who love our country. To the FBI, it's a potential domestic terror threat. And to you or anyone else who has logged onto Facebook in recent months, it may just be a friend or family member who has started to show an alarming interest in child trafficking, the cabal, or conspiracy theories about Bill Gates and the coronavirus. Okay. So far, I don't see a rhetorical analysis claim quite yet. I think I see observation, but we'll keep reading. This is QAnon, a wide-ranging and baseless internet conspiracy theory that reached the American mainstream in August. The movement has been festering on the fringes of right-wing internet communities for years, but its visibility has exploded in recent months amid the social unrest and uncertainty of the coronavirus pandemic. Okay, now it sounds like we moved on to the why. Remember, it's observation, why, and how. That kind of sounds like the why. Let's see if this next one's the how. Now, a QAnon supporter is probably heading to the U.S. Congress. The president, who plays a crucial role in QAnon's false narrative, has refused to debunk and disavow it. And the successful hijacking of the hashtag Save the Children, I should have said that the other way, the Save the Children hashtag, has provided the movement a more palatable banner under which to stage real-life recruiting events and manipulate local news coverage. Here's our guide to what you need to know about QAnon. Okay, now, in a way, I think what we have here is the observation, the why, and the how. So if I was to break this down, remember the rhetorical analysis claim is observation, why, and how. Okay, the observation that's being made here is that, let's see, QAnon is a potential domestic terror threat. QAnon is a potential domestic terror threat that has latched onto, let me go into this so I just keep everything nice and uniform looking. Latched onto a legitimate child trafficking awareness movement. What else in the observation? Anything else up here? Yeah, so it has its conspiracy theories about cabal. Okay. We're going to add another sentence to our observation. It peddles conspiracy theories. Again, let me do this for neatness sake. I'm just really neat about my notes. You can be as messy about your notes as you want for the record. So it peddles conspiracy theories about some quote-unquote cabal. Bill Gates trying to microchip us for the Antichrist. I can spell that out a little more since we know a little more about that now. Silly nonsense. Okay. And what's this last one? And the coronavirus. That's right. I have theories about that too. Coronavirus. Okay. So that's all the observations. That's all this is what they're about to talk about. That goes in the observation part of the rhetorical analysis claim. We put this all together, we might have to trim some stuff up, but we're not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to let it be what it is. For the why, like why are they bothering talking about this? Well, it turns out that it's is moved from the fringes into the mainstream, and this is alarming. Okay, QAnon has moved from the fringes into the mainstream, where it has the potential to do real harm. I think they'll cover this. In fact, I know they cover this in more detail in the article. Okay, what they mean by that. And then the how. How are they going to approach this topic? How are they going to put this all together? That's kind of here hinted to us below. It says, here's our guide to what you need to know. So the how is all of this taken together with the guide. So how about we put it this way, just in anticipation of having to write this as an essay here in a minute. The public is in need of a guide to QAnon so that they may better form a judgment about its potential dangers. Okay, there we go. So that's the rhetorical analysis claim of this article in a nutshell. There we go. So got the rhetorical analysis claim. So that's the thesis statement all strung together. So this is what we did with the Batman video. When I kind of took apart, I asked you to listen to the video and tell me what's really the big overall rhetorical analysis claim that video was making about the Batman movies. So I told you to listen for the observation, like what is this simply about? The why is the writer moving? Why does the writer feel moved to write about this? What's the importance of this topic right now to this writer? And the how, like what structure is the writer going to use to bring this across? Okay, so here they're telling us they're going to make a guide. That's what they're telling us about the structure, so we can expect this to be a guide. Okay, so the next thing we need to look at is pathos, ethos, and logos. Okay, so this is where we do our reading. So I'm going to go back over here. And we got this first subheading. If we scroll down, you see all these bold subheadings as we go through here. There's another one right there. There's another one right there. And there's another one right there. And a final one right there. I think that's the last one. Nope, there's the last one. Okay. So we have all these bold subheadings. So that's our guide. That's how our guide is split up. Okay, so what is QAnon? So the first thing they do is they tell us what it is. I'm not going to read this word for word because I don't want this to last for an hour and a half. But so what is QAnon? They tell us what QAnon is. It says it's a baseless internet conspiracy theory whose followers believe that a cabal of Satan-worshipping Democrats, Hollywood celebrities, and billionaires runs the world while engaging in pedophilia, human trafficking, and the harvesting of a supposedly life-extending chemical from the blood of abused children. Okay. So they give us the lowdown of how QAnon, like what's the core ideology behind it. Okay. There are many, many threads of the QAnon narrative. Some other crazy stuff they believe that like JFK Jr.'s alive. He isn't. We see that in parentheses. The Rothschilds family is controlling all the banks. They don't. Children are sold to the website. Wayfair, they aren't. And then Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, George Soros, Bill Gates, etc., Pope Francis even are some of the people that QAnon believes are, in the center of this giant evil Satan worshiping cabal. Okay. All right. But what I want to point out here is something they're doing. So we can actually start to kind of talk about the pathos, the appeal to emotion. That's what I'm seeing. We can do appeal to, or we can do the ethical appeal, but I kind of like to read the whole article before I do that. Because really understanding how an author establishes their credibility is a matter of seeing what they've done throughout the entirety of an article. So usually the first thing, just as a little tip for how to do this well, the first thing I typically look for is pathos. Because you can start spotting pathos easily. And those are just appeals to emotion. And that's what I see here. Let me highlight this. In this sentence where you see him using the parenthetical remarks. Okay. So this is almost something. It's almost they're almost being humorous about it, right? These are direct contradictions in parentheses to what the QAnon people believe. So it's an attempt at humorousness for a subject that's getting less and less funny by the day. So, so it's the JFK Jr. being alive, parentheses he isn't. The Rothschilds family controlling all the banks, parentheses they don't, and children being sold through Wayfair, parentheses they aren't. So the first thing I notice is under pathos. The author, actually, can I see the name of the author? I want to practice what I preach here and make sure I get the name of the author. And there is no name given to us for the author of the article. Oh, no, I'm sorry. She's over here. I just missed her. Julia Carey Wong. Okay. So I'm going to give her name once. Julia Carey Wong. Okay. Uses, we're going to call these parenthetical remarks. Parenthetical, actually even more specific, parenthetical contradictory remarks. Let's do that. To cast the QAnon ideology as ridiculous and maybe even a little funny. In a different world where things weren't at stake, maybe it'd be a little funny. Okay, so that's one thing I'm going to note about pathos. Let's see what we can find if we keep reading. This all sounds familiar. Haven't we seen this before? Yes. QAnon has its roots in previously established conspiracy theories, some relatively new and some a millennium old. Okay. The contemporary antecedent Pizzagate, the conspiracy theory that went viral during the 2016 presidential campaign when right-wing news outlets and influencers promoted the baseless idea that references to food and a popular Washington, D.C. pizza restaurant in the stolen emails of Clinton campaign manager John Podesta were actually a secret code for child trafficking ring. The theory touched off serious harassment of the restaurant and its employees, culminating in a December 2016 shooting by a man who had traveled to the restaurant believing there were children there in need of rescue. Okay, so what I think is really interesting here is it starts out, this kind of sounds silly up here, like I just pointed out, like she's still kind of just mocking QAnon, right? So it's got a silly tone to it. So if I'm talking about pathos, I'd say this establishes, I'm just going to keep adding thoughts to it as we go, because that's usually how I do notes. This establishes a light-hearted and silly tone to offset the seriousness of the subject. However, if we read a little further in, let's say that the anecdote, because it's what we call little stories, the anecdote of the Pizzagate shooting pokes a hole in the humorousness of it and let's say pivots the tone into or pivots the article toward a serious tone. Okay, that's me just spitballing about what I'm reading. I'm interacting with the way the language affects me, right? That's what you got to do. Here, I'm going to go ahead and bold that, so we got that there. Okay. So we had silly and lighthearted up here, where she's just kind of poking fun at it. Then the clever thing she does, which is what I'm saying over here in my notes, the clever thing she does is she goes immediately into a very serious anecdote of this guy who shot up a pizza joint that had a bunch of children and families in it who were just having pizza. And so all of a sudden, the kind of takes the wind out of the sails of the silliness. So it's almost like she's wanting to drop our guard so that this comes off as shocking as it needs to be, right? All right, so I'm going to skip this bit because it's just a bit more stuff that's tied into Pizzagate. So here's the next subsection. How did QAnon start? So now we get a bit of the history. Okay, so she then moves. I'm just going to take note of this to figure out what I'm going to say about it pathos-wise here in a minute. She then moves from the Pizzagate anecdote to a brief history of the origins of QAnon. I'm not sure what I'm going to say about that emotion-wise for right now, but I'm going to hold off on it. Anyhow, so on 28 October 2017, Q emerged from the primordial swamp of the internet on the message board 4chan with a post in which Q was a person, he confidently asserted that Hillary Clinton's extradition was already in motion and her arrest imminent. In subsequent posts, there have been more than 4,000 so far, Q established his legend as a government insider with top security clearance who knew the truth about the secret struggle for power between Trump and the deep state. Okay, so that's the origin. So we had this guy named Q on 4chan. So he made a bunch of predictions. What she's saying here in short is he made a bunch of predictions that were demonstrably false, that didn't come to pass, and they were the ones that weren't just demonstrably false, were so cryptic and elliptical, which is what she's saying here, that they were hard to prove or disprove either way. They were just, it's somebody playing false prophet. That's what you do it's what a fortune teller does at a fair. They keep things so cryptic and elliptical that they can read your future. They say things are so general or so mysterious that, you can make it apply. So that's what she's saying Q did here. Okay, so that just tells us a bit. So the origins, I'm not sure that this really hits me in terms of the pathos. But what I'm going to do then is look at specific language. Do I see any emotion language? Struggle for power. Okay. Trip code. So this is the stuff actually that's starting to speak to me about ethos. So she's definitely done her research. I mean, all this taken all in all, she knows about Pizzagate. Everyone did, though, so that's not a big deal. That was huge news at the time. But then she knows about, peculiar language that needs to be used, the vocabulary that's necessary to understand all this. She knows about 4chan and 8chan. So this is starting to speak to me about ethos. So I'm going to actually make a note of that. Ethos. What's her last name? Wong. Wong establishes her credibility by demonstrating a fairly detailed understanding of the origins of QAnon, of the relevant, let's say, I don't know, I'm going to say lingo, although that's not the word I would include in the article. It's just late. I can't think of a better word. Of the relevant lingo and of the, let's say, ancillary players. And by that I mean, like, for example, 4chan and, 8chan. Okay. So that's how she's starting to establish her credibility. So it's kind of understanding of the details. Okay, so now she's going to talk about how it goes from posts on a message board to a full-fledged conspiracy movement. Okay. Twitter, so they use Twitter. So they kind of flooded into mainstream social media. Donald Trump, of course, gave them a boost in popularity since he references them a lot. And this is the point here. There now exists an entire QAnon media ecosystem. That is, I would actually say that's pathos right there. The word ecosystem makes it sound large and scary and world-sized. Okay, so I'm going to note that in pathos, I'm going to go back up here and just add that to my pathos notes. The description of QAnon as a media ecosystem. Ecosystem is effectively terrifying. Okay. Just gonna put that in my notes in pathos. Okay. Let's see, who are QAnon? So now we're looking at who makes it up. Really, I think at this point, I actually don't need more facts about it. If I was making a full-blown paper, of course, I would go through every bit of this, okay? So if we're pretending I'm doing this like I want you to do it for midterm, I'd want you to go all the way to the end looking for words that triggered emotional responses, or look for specifics about how she's building up her credibility, right? But I'm going to stop it there just so that this screencast doesn't go on for an hour and a half, okay? I'm already going to get close, so... let's say I've got this to start off with pathos and ethos. I've got my rhetorical analysis claim up here. I'm going to bold that. So now logos. This is the kind of where we get the structure of our paper from. Okay. Logos is a matter of laying out the various important claims made throughout. Okay. We're just going to number them like we did last time I did a screencast. Okay, so let's go back up here. Big important things. QAnon, the first one is that it's a baseless conspiracy theory. Okay, that's the first claim they make. QAnon is a baseless conspiracy theory that peddles, I think I used the word peddle up there, but that's okay. How about we say that traffics in wild evidence-free ideology. Okay, so I'm trying to summarize what all they're saying so I don't have a massive one. That's basically what they're saying up here. Okay. This is already, let's see, we've already at least had one incident where somebody brought a gun. So QAnon has inspired one gun-toting maniac to shoot up a pizza parlor full of families with their kids. Oh, for the record, I know that sounds terrible. You guys are probably too young to remember that. I don't think he actually killed anyone. I think he just shot up the pizza parlor. If it sounds like I'm being really cold about that, I'm pretty sure he didn't actually kill anyone. I think he just shot up the pizza parlor. And I'm sure scarred some kids for life. Okay. Let's see. So, how did QAnon start? We got this stuff about that's really not a claim. This is observation. So she's gone back into observation for the most part. Remember, we want the logos. We want these to be claims. Remember, I'm going to highlight that word just in case you have not been paying attention to class the 100,000 times I've talked about this. Claims are not observations, right? I'm going to put that in little parentheses. Not observations. Claims are arguable statements, so things you have to marshal evidence for. So they're not just simple observations. Okay. The reason why number 2 here is a claim is because plenty of people would say there is no way that you can lay the blame for this maniac doing this solely at the feet of QAnon. There also have to be things like mental illness at play or just emotional instability, etc. And those are valid potential counter-arguments, right? But because you can argue against this, it counts as a claim. So if you can argue against it, it's a claim. Okay, even in theory. I don't mean if it's weak, it's a claim, because I think that's actually a particularly strong claim. But if it's in principle possible to argue against it, you have a claim. Okay. And then, of course, number 1 counts as a claim because plenty of people... a scary number of people actually would argue that their theories are not in fact baseless. Okay. Let's see, is there anything in here that I could call a claim where she's just talking about the history? Doesn't look like it. Although she does say QAnon is both a fun hobby and a deadly serious calling. It's kind of it's a participatory internet scavenger hunt with incredibly high stakes and ready to make community of fellow adherents. That just sounds like a nicely worded observation. That's not a claim. So we'll go to the next thing. Another claim. I'm going to try to get 4 just because it's fun to work with 4. How do you move from that to full-fledged conspiracy? Let's see. That is just a step-by-step observation of how something becomes a full-fledged conspiracy. There now exists an entire QAnon media ecosystem. That is a claim. The enormous amount. Well, no, actually it's not. It's just the use of the word that keeps throwing me, because really she's just describing it. Okay, so we're going to go down and see if we can find one more claim somewhere. Let's see. We think it's fair to say there are about 100,000 people. That's a claim, but it's, yeah, you know what? That would count as a claim. It's not a very strong one because it'd be a matter of just marshaling data, not necessarily marshaling arguments. So actually, we can't use that as a claim. I hope you caught that. So a claim is something you have to marshal arguments for. If it's just a matter of marshaling data, then it's still just an observation. That's why I decided that the claim that it's, or the assertion here that it might be 100,000 people is just an observation. Because really you just have to go through and count. Let's see. QAnon appears to be most popular among older Republicans and evangelical Christians. That's embarrassing. There are subcultures within QAnon for people who approach studying Q drops in a manner similar to Bible study. Oh, wow. Other followers appear to have come to QAnon from New Age spiritual movements, from some traditional conspiracy theory communities, or from the far right. Okay. So let's see. Appears to be most popular among older. Yeah, really, those are just observations. Okay. Why does QAnon matter? Here we'll get into claims. First, there's a threat of violence. For those who truly believe that powerful figures are holding children hostage in order to exploit them sexually or for their blood, taking action to stop the abuse can seem like a moral imperative. While most QAnon followers will not engage in violence, many already have or have attempted to, which is why the FBI has identified the movement as a potential domestic terror threat. Okay, but participation in QAnon also often involves vicious online harassment campaigns against perceived enemies, which can have serious consequences for the targets. Okay, they are gaining traction as a political force in the Republican Party. They're using numbers there, so they're still not making a claim. They're making an observation. As the hero of the overall narrative, Trump has the unique ability to influence QAnon believers. That's a claim. That would be hard to prove. You'd actually have to argue for that. Okay. So as the hero of the QAnon narrative, Trump, oops, where's my T? There we go. Trump, how do they put it? Has the unique ability to influence, okay, Trump can influence QAnon believers for better or worse. Let's say has the potential to. Okay, there we go. So we've got 3 claims we can work with, and that's actually good. Okay, so that's how we're laying out the logos. Logos is looking for the reasoning, and the easy way to do that is to talk about the claims. Okay. So here's where we make it complicated. Here's the extra step I want you to do. Once you've got your claims, I want you now to break each claim. Here, let me go and put this right here. This is the Toolman part that we just added this week. So Toolman analysis. We're going to break each claim into a triad of things. A claim, then the reason, and the warrant. Okay? So we have the claims written out. We've got the first part of the triad for each of these 3. It's claim, reason, warrant. QAnon is a baseless conspiracy theory that traffics in wild, evidence-free ideology. Well, to get to reason and warrant, reason you ask why. The immediate answer to why is your reason. QAnon is a baseless conspiracy theory that traffics in wild, evidence-free ideology. Well, why? Well, I'll do it this way so we keep track of ourselves and put y in parentheses. Okay, so the answer to the y is your reason. Here, I'll do it like this so you can tell what I'm doing. So y / reason. So that's what we're about to do here. Let's see. This is easier than doing the difficult and sometimes intellectually painful work of real investigation. Oops, where's my into important matters. Okay, that's why it's a baseless conspiracy theory that traffics in wild evidence-free ideology, because it's easier than doing the difficult and sometimes intellectually painful work of real investigation into important matters. Right? It's easier just to make up something or go with something wild than it is to do all the legwork of figuring out how the world actually works. Okay, so if we've done y, actually I want to use exactly the language I used in class. So let me look at the language that I offered today. Give me just a second to bring up our class. I'm switching over right now. Assignments. And we scroll down to our review. Okay, I'm clicking on this breaking down the logos thing right here that I made for you today. Okay. So, so the immediate why, and then the so what, that's how I'm saying the warrant. Okay, so the so what to the why. So if reason is the why, then the warrant is the so what. Okay. So what? So QAnon is a baseless conspiracy that traffics in wild evidence-free ideology. Why? Reason. This is easier than doing the difficult and sometimes intellectually painful work of real investigation into important matters. So what? If truth I don't know. I don't want to say something too grandiose here. Truth should matter in our public discourse about things such as human trafficking and political, let's say, machinations. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to say something like that for my claim, reason, warrant. So just keep in mind, I'm going to do that for the next two too, but if this doesn't feel natural to you at first, that's okay. I was telling my students in my second class today, this is the point at which breaking down the logos like this, breaking down each claim into claim, reason, warrant, that's where you really start digging under the skin. Like you saw, it took me a moment to think up how to dig deeper into this. Like, what's my why / reason? What's my so what / warrant? And you might not even, the first version of it, like if I was to play around with these notes for a while, I'm sure I would alter how I just structured these, right? I know I would. I can tell by the way I've written them right now. But you take a first swipe at it. So what I want to see in your midterms is I want to see you attempting an earnest attempt to break logos. Each of the big claims you come up with, I suggest 3 or 4 to structure your paper with. Because remember, each one of these claims is going to be a paragraph in your paper. You're going to use it to launch a paragraph. But struggle to break down the claim into claim, reason, warrant. So once you found the claim, ask what the immediate why is to that claim. What's the immediate why that claim raises? And then what's the immediate so what that reason raises, right? Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, so what that the claim raises. So what's the immediate why that the claim raises, and what's the immediate so what that the warrant raises? Okay, So we've got the second claim. QAnon has inspired one gun-toting maniac to shoot up a pizza parlor full of families with their kids. Okay. So what's the why reason? What's the immediate why to this? Why do we think that it's QAnon that has done this and not something else like mental or emotional instability? Maybe that's the why I want to answer here. The immediate why that jumps out at me. Let's say the impulse to lash out in it, let's say, is stronger in a mass society where large numbers of citizens feel left out of the political process, and where you have the impulse to lash out, you have fertile soil for conspiracy mongering against the powers that be. Okay, maybe that's my immediate why. So what's my so what? My so what and my warrant is the same thing. Okay, my so what, my warrant. Oops, I need T and not against. So what warrant? What's the so what to that? I guess if we want a world governed by truthful understanding and, let's say, careful deliberation, then let's see, we cannot grab our guns and run after each baseless conspiracy theory that we hear on the internet. Again, this is digging. This is a digging process. I can tell right now if I was to turn this into a full-blown essay, I'd want to change how I'm constructing these. But I'm taking a first swipe at it. Okay. Okay. So the final claim here that's going to be our third body paragraph. As the hero of the QAnon narrative, Trump has the potential to influence QAnon believers for better or worse. What's my why reason? Maybe what's my why for thinking that? Or maybe what's my why for thinking he's the hero of the narrative, or what's my why for thinking he has the potential to influence QAnon believers? I'll do that second one, because the why he's the hero of the narrative is just an observation. It's that he is literally put at the center of the narrative by the QAnon people. So let's say the why pertains to the why does he have the potential to influence QAnon believers for better or worse? Something like he has, let's say the president, so it's a little more clear. The president has let me spell correctly, has demonstrated a willingness to, bait his political opponents with conspiracy theories, and perhaps he is capable in a better moment of curbing the worst tendencies of these conspiratorial groups who follow him. I don't know, something like that. That's my first swipe. So what? Warrant. So what's my warrant here? So what? let's say the so what to that is about needing a leader to change. A conspiracy movement needs a leader to take hold of it, because when a conspiracy movement, any movement, doesn't have a leader, when it's decentralized, it's much harder to control, and there's no hope. So maybe we should say something like, the big so what here is, in point of fact, without a leader to direct them away from the most dangerous possibilities of their movement, the QAnon followers may well descend into endless fantasies of violence and depredation. Okay, just use a fancier word. Okay, again, I'll say the same thing I said about the first two. If I was to actually sit down and take days to write an essay, like if it was actually for me and I was writing an essay, I would definitely go over these so many times that they wouldn't even look like this by the time it was finished. We don't have time for that though, so we're just going to pretend that these are fine as they are. So we've now broken down our ethos, logos, and pathos. Remember, all of this was about logos. We just made it the more complicated Toolman analysis style of breakdown for logos. And up here we have done our rhetorical analysis claim for the article, what we think what Julia Carey Wong is saying. Okay, I'm going to erase Batman video there because it might be confusing. This is Julia Carey Wong's, thesis. Okay, and that's all this stuff up here. So now we're ready to start writing. So what you want to do is go to the end of your notes, like we did last time I did one of these screencasts. I'm going to do a page break, and then down here do a little heading. We'll just steal the one I used up here so I don't have to keep writing a bunch of stuff. Make this as fast as possible. The rest of this, I'm just going to model for you how it gets started. I'm not going to model the whole, I'm not going to write a whole essay. Okay, so as with last time, see we are flush left here. That's your left justify key right there, up there, align text left. Remember, your essays are always aligned text left. The only thing that's centered is your title, right? So now it's centered. Well, we want to go down here, and now we are aligned left. Good. So once we're aligned left, we want to tab. Okay. And if I was really doing this correctly, I would also highlight all this, and I would do double space. There you go. Okay. Because both APA and MLA require that you double space. Okay. All right, so we go up here and we're ready to start putting together our introductory paragraph. Remember, we just do that with our rhetorical analysis claim. So we are going to copy and paste a bunch of stuff that we've already written, and we'll just finesse it as we go. Okay. I'm going to paste that for right now. Oops, that all didn't come out correct. Hey, why are you over there? Come over here. I have no idea why that paragraph is messed up. There we go. What in the world happened when I copied and pasted that? I'm going to recopy and paste that because it was just too weird. Okay. So I'm going to go back up here. Oh, maybe it's because I have all this stuff. You know what? Just in case that's it, I'm going to move this stuff back here just so I don't have to deal with any weird formatting issues. Sorry, you probably won't have to deal with this stuff. Okay, now we're ready to copy and paste. I just had to fix some stuff real fast. Okay, and the way I had structured my notes. There we go. Again, don't know why in the world that's happening. Okay, well, that's fine, we fixed it. Now I just need to have my little indentation up here because your paragraphs should always be indented. And then we're going to go back and double space this again. Yeah, so I'm modeling this correctly for you. Okay, double spaced. Okay, so we're going to put this all down first, and then we're going to listen to how it sounds and see if we need to finesse it. Okay, so we're going back up here to our rhetorical analysis claim, and now we're grabbing our Y. And then I'm going to paste it down here. Oh, you jerk. What in the world? There we go. What in the world? No idea why my formatting's messing up so badly. Okay. And go back up here and grab our how. And then I paste it down here. Then we're going to look at what we have, because that should be most of our introduction. No idea what's going on. Okay, let's see if that's everything I was supposed to have grabbed. How the public is in need. Yep, okay. So let's look and see what we have. Let's just read it out loud like I've been telling you to do. That way you can catch grammatical errors and see how things flow. So here's our introductory paragraph minus our claim. We have not tacked on our claim yet. That's what we're going to tack on down here. Okay. QAnon is a potential domestic terror threat that has latched onto a legitimate child trafficking awareness movement. It peddles conspiracy theories about some cabal, Bill Gates trying to microchip us for the Antichrist, and the coronavirus. QAnon has moved from the fringes into the mainstream where it has the potential to do real harm. The public is in need of a guide to QAnon so that they may better form a judgment about its potential dangers. I think that sounds pretty okay, but here's what I'm going to do. Since we know that this is about Julia Carey Wong, and that's who we're talking about, we're going to mention her right up front. So let's just say Julia Carey Wong in her article for the, capital T and D, for The Guardian, titled, what was this article titled? Let's go back up here and make sure I get it right. QAnon Explained. We're going to use the short version. Don't do that in your papers. I'm just doing it here for time's sake. I'm just going to use QAnon Explained. Okay, I'd like you to use the full titles. Okay. Anon Explained argues that. Okay, now listen to it. Julia Carey Wong, in her article for The Guardian titled QAnon Explained, argues that QAnon is a potential domestic terror threat that has latched onto a legitimate child trafficking awareness movement. It peddles conspiracy theories about some cabal, Bill Gates trying to microchip us for the Antichrist, and the coronavirus. And I'm going to add a furthermore, just so it doesn't sound like we're going through a bullet point list of things. Right? I love these connective phrases. If you've been watching my videos and my lectures, you know. I'm going to highlight this. I do not want you to in your papers. That's just to show you. Okay, I love using connective phrases, transition phrases. They're like the glue between sentences, which is what I said last time. They keep your thought flowing. So furthermore, QAnon has moved from the fringes into the mainstream where it has the potential to do real harm. The public is in need of a guide to QAnon so they may better form a judgment about its potential dangers. Great. What we need now is a claim about what she's done. So let's go back up here to our notes on Ethos and Pathos. Do we see any weakness in this? Let's see. The Pathos, you know what? I'm going to claim I see a weakness in it just to make my argument interesting. I'm going to claim that her attempt at humor at the beginning, like when we talked about that up here. So I said Julia Wong uses parenthetical contradictory remarks to cast the QAnon ideology as ridiculous and maybe even a little funny. I'm actually going to argue that that's a misstep on her part, just to be interesting. I don't know that I believe that, but it's an interesting argument to make against her. You don't have to believe the things you argue as long as they're good arguments, okay? In a paper, I mean, not in real life. In real life, try to believe the things you argue for. But in a paper, you can just practice arguing. So that's what I'm going to argue, okay? Her article is, this is my claim now. This is the thing I'm going to have to defend. Is informative, but the early attempts at, I'm going to say sardonic wit, which is just a fancier way of saying humor. I'm just going to let you know that in parentheses. I'm just going for the college level language here because I want you to. But the early attempt at sardonic wit, let's let's say, muddies the tone of the piece and leaves the reader wondering just precisely how, oops, where's my L in precisely? Oh, it is. How seriously we should take QAnon. How about say we should take the threat posed by QAnon. Okay, now we have that right there. I'm going to highlight it. Again, I do not want you to do this. I'm just showing you. I'm highlighting it so you can see. Now I've tacked a claim onto my rhetorical analysis claim up here. So the rhetorical analysis claim is her. Remember, this is the they say, I say thing. So this is her. So we did the they say first. Julia Carey Wong. This is what she says. This is the they say. And now I tack onto that they say what I say. This is what I'm saying right here. That's what I got to defend as I'm talking about what she says. Okay. Make sure I don't steal my, okay, highlighter on. Now we can start building our paragraphs. And you see, since we did the Toolman analysis, we actually have more to work from now. We actually have several sentences for each claim. So let's see which one would work best as our first body paragraph. We have QAnon as a baseless conspiracy, it's inspired gun-toting maniac, as the hero of the QAnon narrative. I actually kind of like the order that we came into those, so I'm going to keep them in that order. So I'm going to copy and paste that down here and just work on it. Okay. Let's match destination formatting, paste. No, not as a list. What in the world? Okay, we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. And then I'm going to tab because it's a new paragraph. Okay. So I'm going to keep this about Wong, right? So if I just read this right here, I'm going to read from my claim into this paragraph so then I can discuss to you what I'm hearing and why I feel like I need to change this. So again, here's my claim at the beginning of the introduction, and I'm going to read right into the paragraph. Her article is informative, but the early attempt at sardonic wit muddies the tone of the piece and leaves the reader wondering just precisely how seriously we should take the threat posed by QAnon. QAnon is a baseless conspiracy theory that traffics in wild, evidence-free ideology. Okay, can you hear that? It's in desperate need of a transition, right? It just sounds like that I've made an observation that's relevant to the conversation, but not one that flows from what I've just written. Okay, so we need something that flows from my claim here. So let's tie this back to Wong. So I'm just going to use her last name now since I've used her full name once. I'm going to highlight that. Oops. Since I've used her full name once, I'm going to just use her last name for the rest of my essay. Oops, go away. There we go. Okay. Wong would have us believe that QAnon is a baseless conspiracy theory that traffics in wild, evidence-free ideology. See that? Now all of a sudden that sounds like that flows from my claim. So I'm going to read those two together. Bear with me. Her article is informative, but the early attempt at sardonic wit muddies the tone of the piece and leaves the reader wondering just precisely how seriously we should take the threat posed by QAnon. Wong would have us believe that QAnon is a baseless conspiracy theory that traffics in wild, evidence-free ideology. See, so I just mentioned her, and she was the subject of my previous sentence, and now I'm coming back to her in this paragraph, okay, in my transition into this paragraph. That makes it sound like it flows, all right? So it's her. I was talking about her up here. I'm talking about her again. Okay. So now I'm just going to read through the paragraph. I'm going to delete my parenthetical notes here because you don't need them. Do not leave them in, please. This is supposed to look like an essay, not notes. Okay. Wong would have us believe that QAnon is a baseless conspiracy theory that traffics in wild, evidence-free ideology. This is easier than doing the difficult and sometimes intellectually painful work of real investigation into important matters. Ouch. So there's a gap there. That something needs to be explained. We at least need a transition phrase or some kind of explanation that connects that first sentence to that second sentence, because the connection is not there. It's not there in writing. Okay, so she would have us believe that it's a baseless conspiracy theory, evidence-free ideology. Let's say something like such. Such evidence. I don't want to repeat myself either. That's why I'm hesitating, because I just used evidence-free ideology, so I don't want to use the expression evidence-free, which was my first instinct. I don't want to use that again. Let's see. The appeal to conspiracy is understandable. Oops. In this day and age, believing conspiracies, where are we? Conspiracy theories is easier than doing the difficult. Now it sounds like it sounds good. Okay, so let me just read it aloud again. Wong would have us believe that QAnon is a baseless conspiracy theory that traffics in wild, evidence-free ideology. The appeal to conspiracy is understandable in this day and age. Believing conspiracy theories is easier than doing the difficult in some because. That needs to be one. See, I read it out loud and I realized this needs to be one sentence, a compound sentence. Because believing conspiracy theories is easier than doing the difficult and sometimes intellectually painful work of real investigation into important matters. Truth should matter in our public discourses about things such as human trafficking and political machinations. Yeah. And I could even do a little transition phrase since I could end on that point because it's pretty plucky. So I'll say, here lies the rub. That means here's the big point. Actually, you're supposed to say, herein lies the rub. That's the expression. Herein lies the rub. That truth should matter in our public discourses about things such as human trafficking and political machinations. Okay, good. Now I'm satisfied with that first paragraph. So we just do that again with each of these. Okay. So let's just go up to our second one here. Copy. Paste. Oops. Get rid of that 4 because we don't need it. Double space it. And then tab because we need an indentation. It's a new paragraph. QAnon has inspired one gun-toting maniac to shoot up a pizza parlor full of families with kids. Again, we need to transition from that last paragraph into this one. I'm going to delete my parenthetical notes real fast. So we definitely won't need those in here. Okay. So we need another transition leading into this paragraph to connect this to this, so it all sounds like one conversation that's unfolding and not just a bunch of random stuff that's kind of related to each other but still random. You don't want your essay to sound like a bullet point list. You want it to sound like a conversation that makes sense from beginning to end in the way it flows. Okay. Herein lies the rub, that truth should matter in our public discourses about things such as human trafficking and political machinations. This is painfully obvious when violence is introduced into the mix. For example, QAnon has inspired one gun-toting. So now that flows, right? This is painfully obvious, means I'm referring back to what I was talking about in this one, but I've switched subjects a bit. This is painfully obvious when violence is introduced into the mix. For example, QAnon has inspired one gun-toting maniac to shoot up a pizza parlor full of families with their kids. The impulse to lash out is stronger. Again, we have a missing thought between these two that I would need to fill in. I'm not going to do it now because I'm literally so tired. I'm not going to start making sense here in a second. But I would fill in a missing thought there. What I'm hoping that you're seeing, though, even though I'm not finishing this, what I've modeled for you is how to go about transferring these specific sorts of notes directly into an essay. It's as easy as can be as long as you do the difficult legwork of the note-taking up here, the way I've asked you to. So, rhetorical analysis claim, that's where you're taking apart the author of the article's observation, why and how, as best you can, right? And then pathos, ethos, and logos, just a matter of reading carefully. This information up here, by the way, when I go down here to revise, so right now I'm just laying out these paragraphs. When I go back in here and I want to like beef them up and I want to start talking about some more stuff, I want to insert an analytical body paragraph, which you'll have to. Let's say that's the next one. I'm not going to write it because I've already demonstrated that for you guys a ton of times. In fact, it's in my last screencast demonstration if you just need to watch me put together an analytical body paragraph. Okay, if I was to do the analytical body paragraph, which deals in evidence, I'd probably go back up here to the stuff I was looking at in the Ethos and Pathos, this stuff right here, and that stuff would factor into my analytical body paragraph. I'd probably figure out ways to smash that into it. Okay, so in a nutshell, so you would continue out, you'd finish out your paragraphs, you'd have your analytical, you'd have your 3 paragraphs from your 3 claims here, right? From your taking apart logos earlier, and then you'd have an analytical body paragraph, which would be a 4th body paragraph, and then you'd have a conclusion. In the conclusion, one trick I do, sometimes I'll leave some of this stuff for the conclusion. Like I'll find something particularly juicy that I think speaks to the heart of what I'm getting at in my main claim. And here my main claim was that she misfired in attempting sardonic humor. So maybe I'll go back up here to where I'm talking about pathos and maybe I'd use that little bit or something. And that's a little too specific, but maybe I'd just look at my pathos and think if there's something I could use here in the conclusion to come back to. But that's it in a nutshell, folks. I'm going to go ahead and stop this so that this demonstration doesn't go so long that only 10% of you actually bother to watch it from beginning to end. But that's how you put it together for when you do your midterms, okay? You do it from your notes. Do not try to do this off the top of your head or you will not produce the essay that I'm looking for and won't get a decent grade, okay? So good luck on your midterm essays. I will see you later.